How is everyone? Happy Monday. We're live. I'm so excited. I'm checking everything. Welcome, Ola. How is everyone? Welcome to my Mayhem Streamcast. Are we doing good? I see someone. Hi, Emily. Okay, we got people in the chat. We are officially live. What's up, Mackenzie? I love it. All right. Well, we are here to kick off another week with wonderful guests to share their story of mayhem. I hope everyone is having a wonderful start to the holiday weekend because here in the US, we're having Thanksgiving. I'm DJ, your host, visual descriptor for listeners. I'm a female Latina brunette with silver hair. That's where I get my name. More than just a few streaks. I have olive skin, brown eyes, big smile. I'm wearing like bubblegum pink lipstick, and I'm wearing my own shirt tonight. Thank you. We'll talk a little bit about that later. It's like a pink shirt. So, and inspired by my logo. So thank you for everyone that's here. Again, another week. I'm so excited. I'm so thankful for everyone that's here, all our community. We're here to share our powerful stories and experiences to destigmatize and normalize our mental health, our disability, and all our trauma. We all have it. This is a place where I like to share our mayhem, create opportunities and connections, and also be a voice to break all those stigmas and encourage acceptance. So, trigger warning, we always use discretion as we can talk about things that may be difficult and mature in nature, and these are our opinions and our experiences. So please, thank you for everyone for being here. I can't wait to have our guest come out. He's a wonderful streamer. I'm so excited. We've known each other for a couple months, more than a couple months, and I was on his podcast, but we're going to talk about that. If you're new to my show, I'm DJ. Please subscribe, support me, check my stuff out. Silver Fox Talks. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm streaming on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, DLive, Twitter. Yes, Twitter too. Thank you, Restream, for always powering my live. And right now we're streaming at 6:30. It used to be 7:30, but we're going 6:30 with the winter ahead of us. So, everyone, we're here to celebrate National Adoption Day. This is what I wanted to talk about today. It's really important for me as we head into the Thanksgiving weekend. This is really inspiring because back in 2000, this is what I heard, and this is what inspired today, was Judge Nash was a judge in Los Angeles where he opened the courts on Saturdays to allow for finalizations of adoptions, for children to have homes and families to celebrate their Thanksgiving. So isn't that amazing? That's wonderful. So I'm excited, very excited. So let me see. Let me check the chat. There's so many people here. Hi, chat. I'm going to get to you in a minute. Oh, my goodness. How's everybody doing? Oh, my goodness. There's so many people. Hi, Dorothy Ann. I know. So great. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Tim, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Oh my God, let's get to our guest. Okay, I like to talk to the chat when I have my guest out. So today we have Oleg Lougheed. I hope I said that right. Oleg, you're going to let me know. He's here to share his story of overcoming the odds of adoption. He is a Tedx speaker and a podcaster of 2 podcasts. He live streams on multiple platforms as well. He's the founder and executive director of Overcoming Odds, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. It restores a sense of belonging and family and raises awareness for adoption and foster care communities and provides resources for future adoptive parents. I cannot wait to talk about this. I used to work with foster care kids and the adoption system, so this is really close. This is important to me. So Oleg's going to share his story, a little bit about him. Was in the promo. I cannot wait to hear about him. He's going to share. Let me go ahead and get him out here. Come on, Oleg, let's get out here. What's up? I didn't want to, and I'm like, oh my God, intro's taking too long. Let's get you out here.
I love it.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well, and I'm actually, when you mentioned the time, it's funny you said it's 6:30. It's 11:36 where I'm at because I'm in Portugal.
Ooh.
I've been traveling for the past actually almost 2 months.
Yeah.
And spending some time here and a little bit of time in Spain, and then from there gonna make my way to Norway and then to Africa afterwards.
Wow.
And, it's
Well,
been quite the
thank you.
journey. Yeah.
Sounds
But
like a
I
journey.
love this space. I love everything that you've created, and um, yeah, I'm just a huge supporter of everything that you do, and clearly the community says the same exact thing.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
Of
Your
course.
story is really, really powerful. So if I worked in social services for over 20 years, and I usually kind of say that in my intro or my bio or when I'm introducing myself. But a lot of people don't know that I work specifically with kids in foster care, specifically with the court system, getting kids into adoption. So, that's something that I specifically worked with. So I
I didn't
loved
know
working.
that either, because
it,
I don't think we even had that. I don't think we had that conversation
I don't think
on
we
our
got that
podcast
deep.
either, because yeah, I think we spoke primarily about
Disability.
disability and the
Yeah.
stigma and everything that's
Mhm.
associated with it. But I don't.
Yeah.
When you were mentioning it that in the intro, I was like, I didn't know any of that. So talk about powerful
Surprise.
stories. Sounds like you have a powerful story to share as well.
It was a really profound time in my life where I really bonded with so many children in the system. And I knew that I was one of those influential people in their life as a
Yeah.
caseworker. I had to be there for them. I had to take them to their appointments or make sure that they were getting there and, be there for the foster parent, be there between the court systems, between the parents and what the parents needed to do. And I'm in Florida, so that system, comparing it to other systems. But here, yeah, so it was just really, I grew a lot. I learned a lot
Mm.
about individuals, and I really learned to love to work with kids. But my favorite were teenagers. They would always give me the teenagers. They would never give me babies in foster care. They'd be like, "You're so great with the teenagers. The teenagers love you. The adolescents love you." And I'm like, they're the ones that run away. They're the
Yeah.
ones that are, like getting into more trouble. They're not the cute little babies. So, but I really loved working with the adolescents. And then I really learned that passion for how important that sometimes those adolescents look like adults,
Yeah.
right? Maturity or the way we look really kind of is almost fake as to what's really
Hmm.
going on inside. And so, but enough about me, enough about a
Hmm.
little bit about my background. We're here for you, but absolutely, like this before Thanksgiving, it was really important for me to talk about this and wanted to highlight your story and your story of
Of
adoption.
course.
So please
I
share.
I think you hit the nail on the head with a couple of things. The first one is the whole adolescent experience.
Yeah.
So for anyone that's tuning in right now and bits and pieces of my story, I was adopted at the age of 12. And that can be a difficult age to be adopted at, especially in the international adoption, because
Yeah.
if you for those that are not familiar with it, 12 years old is considered to be relatively old to be adopted in our international system.
Yeah.
And so when I think about my own quote unquote odds to overcome, they were almost slim to none to actually be adopted by family, because at least at that time, many of the adoptions that were taking place were from newborn to about 6. So I was
Yeah.
at least 6 years older. And that's where I think the challenges really begin to pile up, because not only was I adopted at a older age, but I was also adopted into a system where I didn't know the language. When I first came to the States, I didn't know how to speak English. I didn't know anything about this part of the world. I didn't know the culture. I literally knew nothing besides the name Michael Jordan. True story. And that's how iconic he is around the world.
Wow.
I tell this story to this day. I remember sitting down with my mom, my adopted mom, on the
Mm-hmm.
couch of the orphanage, and she pulled out a little notepad and started to scribble down names in order for me to pick my middle name prior to our court date. And she wrote down different options, and then she got to the name Michael, and I was like, that's it. So I make this ongoing joke
Michael.
that maybe that movie, like Mike, maybe I should have starred in it.
Wow.
it's the
I
only
love that.
it's the only American name I knew at the time, and that's what I chose to do and pick that. And I somehow assumed at that age that that might play a role and help me assimilate into the culture and understand these things. But I think you're correct as far as adolescence is already or can be a difficult enough age for those that do speak English and those that do know things about the culture. But for me, it was just an added layer. Now I had to learn a language, learn a culture, and I made plenty of mistakes, and I put my parents in difficult situations from time to time. I laugh about it now.
Yeah.
It wasn't so funny back then, but it's just
Right.
that's just the journey. That's the journey of many kids who actually get adopted, regardless of what the age is. At least that's the stories that I've been hearing. So I think
Wow.
I think there's much to discuss and break down, but ultimately, I think I would say I'm very fortunate and grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for everyone else that chose to be along my journey, as difficult as it was. They just believed in me, regardless of the circumstances, and really, that's why I'm here. At the end of the day, I'm here just due to hundreds, if not thousands, of people that chose to help me in whatever way that they could. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their help.
Yes. Okay. So let's see. I guess want to ask, where is Oleg originally from?
Town called Chibarkul in Russia.
Chubar. Oh,
Chibarkul.
I say it so American.
There
Sorry.
you go. It's all right. There's a first time for everything. Yeah, there's a town
Yeah.
called Chibarkul. It's in the direction of Kazakhstan, I believe, a couple hours away from that.
And
Relatively, I used
Russia's
to say
huge.
it is, and I used
So
to
we're
say
Western Russia.
correct,
Okay.
and I used to say that this was a relatively small town until I actually looked it up, and I think it was 1.5 million or
Mm.
maybe 1 million people. And so the only reason why I thought it was small is because when I was younger, I remember being able to go from one end of town to the other just on foot. I don't know if you have memories like that when you were younger, wherever
I
you
used to
were.
ride my bike. I was
I
like
know, right?
always riding my bike to get wherever I needed to go as a kid. It was like I'm gonna jump on my bike and go.
But it's funny how I think many of us store those memories, though, isn't it? Like we remember these towns as these quote unquote small villages, but really compared to some of these other bigger cities, these were huge cities that we're living in. And this is the
Wow.
same thing for me. So it's been interesting, and I hope to go back. I hope to go back and visit one day, but I just think that
So you haven't been back yet.
I haven't been back since I was adopted.
Wow,
It's
that is
been
gonna be so special.
16 years. It's been 16 years, and I I did have a desire
Do you have family?
to.
Have you connected at all with birth family?
My sister still lives there.
Your
She's
sister.
18 years older,
Yeah.
so
In
she's
your
in her
story, you shared that. In your story, you had an
40s.
older sister
Yeah,
and your mom.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My mom passed the year after I was adopted, I believe. Yeah,
Oh
she passed. There was a
wow.
apartment fire, and her yeah, she passed in
So
that.
sorry.
And
But you have your
what's
sister.
I have my sister. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a complicated relationship, as I think
Yeah.
probably many of the families are.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
that's
thank
something
you.
that yeah,
Always something to work on, right? I mean, life is complicated in
it
itself
is,
and
to say the
family
least.
dynamics and stuff. So, hey, we all got that stuff back there.
Where do we
Emily, thank
start?
you for sharing. Yes. She says her brother in law and his wife adopted 3 sisters from Russia in the late
Oh wow.
1990s. So, how's that relationship going, Emily? Do tell. We would love to hear how is it in that um that relationship. Hi Daniel, thank you for being here. Daniel also was a guest on my show, and he shared his story about being adopted as well,
Oh
growing up in
wow.
foster care, and now he was a foster parent, also an adoptive parent. So he's been on both sides, and just has a huge story. So definitely connect with Daniel if you haven't connected, Oleg.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's lots you could share and exchange, and have a great, powerful conversation. So,
It's always fascinating to hear both sides. People
mhm,
who were
yeah,
either in foster care,
yeah,
or people who were adopted and then later on in life turned out to be parents, adopted parents, foster parents. I've always been curious. The
yeah,
Obviously there are differences between the two,
yeah.
but just
That's, yeah.
understanding, like, that's how some people choose to give back, kind of
Mhm.
just wanting to do that so other people don't have to relive the same experiences. And it's just interesting different ways that people choose to serve throughout their lives, and how the upbringing really can shape, I guess, one's trajectory moving forward.
Yes. Influence, those socioeconomic, those
Mm-hmm.
environmental factors always play a role. They really
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you go into sharing your story and you made it to the TEDx, and now you have a foundation that really, again, supports that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is something I wanted to do going on to 3 to 4 years, and
Mhm.
that's for quite a few years of my life. I really struggled in finding purpose and in finding meaning from a lot of the circumstances that I was born into. And I'll
Mhm.
briefly give people some context. I was born in Russia in a town called Chubarkul, and I was born to a very difficult set of circumstances. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was in prison, and then my sister, who was 18 years old and still is, ended up becoming my legal guardian. So everything was up in the air from the time that I entered this particular life to begin with. And what I've realized was, for the years leading up to building this foundation, one of the biggest questions that I struggled in answering was, why me?
Mm.
Why was I the one that was dealt this set of hand or this set of cards, and what can I do with them? And then what I started to realize was that through conversations with other people, especially those who have had similar backgrounds and upbringings, I began to realize that the answer was always within me, but yet I was just looking for this answer to appear in this grand gesture, like a Hollywood blockbuster type. And the answer was, why not you? And I think it was as simple as that. And once I really embraced that as a possible answer to my question, everything shifted. I no longer
Mm.
looked at my circumstances the same exact way. I no longer looked at my parents the same exact way. In fact, for many years, I blamed my mom for the circumstances that she raised me in. I blamed her for drinking. I blamed her for not being responsible. I blamed her for the lack of housing that she was able to provide to us when we were young. So I
Mm.
blamed her for all these circumstances. And then once my answer shifted from why me to why not you, I started to actually dive deeper into this concept of forgiveness. And I think through just that mindset shift, I started to forgive her more and more. And I really just started to embrace her for who she was. And within the past couple of years, I think I've gotten to a pretty good place with her. I can I can confidently say that I can view her as a person, and especially someone who did her best
Yeah.
despite of the circumstances. And so that's what wanted to do, is I wanted to build this space. Initially, it was a space for adoptees and foster youth to be able to share their stories. And I didn't want to, I built it slightly different than, I guess you could say, many organizations do. And that's
Yes.
I chose to become the client of my own work. For me, it was important to not lose track of what I was trying to solve. And I figured that the only way that I can always have an understanding of what's being built is if I internally understand it. So that was the first thing. And the second one is, I didn't want to propose solutions that have already existed there, but rather I just wanted to create a space for people to voice their stories. And then it was through their stories, help people identify their own solutions and help
Yeah.
them actually build a community around that. And it's been an interesting path to do it that way. I've received a fair share of rejection and criticism along the way. I don't know how
Mm.
many remarks, thousands by now. I no longer view no, or you can't do this, or you should stop doing this as things that stop me. It's just the everyday remark I receive at this point, and
Wow.
I've gotten so used to it by now. It's like,
You definitely said something that I think is true for a lot, about the outside and the inside, right? And that you
yeah,
essentially said it's about the perspective, right? It's the way we look at
yeah,
things, it's the way we approach things. I mean, and one thing I also wanted to say was, I assume, this is an assumption,
mm-hmm,
through your interviews, through your interactions in your podcast, you've learned so much about other stories that helps you with yours.
Oh, yeah.
And it puts you in a place to say, okay. So like you said, I mean, it does take time to get through these feelings, through learn about what's going on internally and what we're doing with all that. Whether we've done something in a positive or healthy way, or whether we've turned it into something self-sabotaging or something, but I mean, you've done it to really like move the needle forward. And so
Yeah.
I really commend you for that.
No, thank you.
Overcoming those odds as
Yeah,
that's
seriously.
what everything you're about. Yeah.
And I think ultimately what I've also learned through many of these interviews, and I think you could probably relate to this through the conversations that you've had, is that I believe everyone can be a teacher and a student simultaneously. I think this right now is a space that is a perfect example of it. I can be a student of everything that's being shared between you and I, as well as everything in the comments. I can also share the different lessons that I've learned throughout my life that may or may not be of help to those who are listening. And I think once I really started to embrace that, my conversations became significantly better, because then I was actually invested in the other person. I was invested in hearing what they had to say and how they had to say it. And I think from there, my curiosity just exploded through the roof. Like I can genuinely say that I'm actually curious about people, regardless of what that person is, regardless of what they've been through. There have been times where I've had conversations where the person and I don't see eye to eye on many things. But for me, I find that fascinating, because I've trained myself over the years of doing these interviews where I can still sit back there and, even in the moment of discomfort, ask myself, what is that discomfort I'm experiencing? Where is it coming from within me? Because it's not the other person. And this is something that my dad my dad taught me the same thing. I remember him and I were sitting down one day, and he was sharing a story with me about how he views the world. And one of the things that he mentioned is this concept that the problem is you. And it really made me think, because whatever the problem is, it's very rarely the problem with the other person. It's the problem with how I'm experiencing this particular situation. So if the neighbor doesn't choose to put out the trash can on a Thursday, or they take my trash can instead of their trash can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the problem is me, because that's how I'm interpreting it. So I realized that through many of the conversations is that I don't think, for me, the point is not to always see eye to eye. The point is truly trying to understand, how is the person seeing the world, and how am I seeing the world, and what is the world that we can co-create as the two people or however many people on it. So it's just been a really fascinating journey to do a lot of this podcasting, and I think in knowing what I know now, to be honest with you, I hope to never stop podcasting. I hope to do it for the rest of my life, just because of how impactful it has been for me. I mean, besides that, it's also a daily practice or a weekly practice to just understand, how do you process your thoughts? How do you look at your day-to-day? Do you even reflect on the things that are impactful or that you choose to remember?
Very true. Woo! Oleg, keep talking. You're solid. You're so solid. Okay, I'm gonna slow you down because you're going deep, brother. You're going deep. Okay, let's get to the chat. I love Emily's comment. Emily shared a little bit about her story and her family. So the three sisters have the same mom. They were about 6, 7, and 8 when adopted. Okay, so it gives us the oldest died several months ago. Oh my goodness, she struggled. One is married and pregnant. Okay, Emily, thank you for sharing. And she added on to that, they adopted the younger two and brought them home, and then they learned about their older sister who was in a different orphanage. So adopting her required that they get another car, as they had already had 2 boys. So their mom was an alcoholic. So I don't know how that, but thank you, Emily, for sharing. Yeah.
Did you have a challenging upbringing? Like what were your parents like? Mm-hmm.
No, but some of the stuff you did say kind of struck because I was raised by my father and not by my mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Were
do
they
have,
divorced or together
yeah, they
or
were divorced.
okay?
Hmm. Divorced. So I do have like divorced, but I was raised in a religious, so like very conservative, very sheltered
Mm,
life by my father. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, and a lot of like religious influence. So, which gives me a lot of fundamental values that I really
Mm-hmm.
still hold true, in my heart. So, but you still kind of want to expand yourself beyond what you're taught to really understand other things. So, and then Daniel, thank you for sharing. He says he trains inbound foster adoptive families.
Oh
So that's
wow!
something he also does. So yeah, get together, have a good
I
whole
will.
conversation. Daniel,
I
I
would
can't
love to
wait.
do
I would
that.
love to see a podcast between both of you. Daniel has done some amazing work. He's got some awards, computer, he makes websites and he makes like,
Computer
he's so
whiz.
good. Yeah, like, oh, he's so good. He's so good. Okay, let me see. Mackenzie said you have to reject rejection. So there you go. I like that. I like that. I love that. Reject that rejection. Right. Like, don't fall for that. Emily agrees. So true. I'm sorry I missed it. He was saying a lot of good stuff, right? Really important. It took me a while to realize that too. Podcasting, let's see, Emily said, podcasting is awesome. It changed my life and the lives of my listener. I've learned from every guest. So true.
Yeah,
We do learn
yeah.
from our guests. And I like to practice active listening and welcoming those experiences and really trying to be empathetic to them. So,
Have
even
you
like you, go ahead.
have you received your first 1-star review yet?
No, I don't have a podcast. My live stream is not put into a podcast yet. It's just a
Oh, okay.
it's just a stream. But we'll see. I've been thinking about trying to do that into making into audio and going back, and we'll see what we do with it, right? There's always something. So podcasting really does, and that's something I really look forward to. But the messages and the conversations and really like learning about your guest and your story. So I want to go back to
Mm-hmm.
you though,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
your foundation and your speaking and your message, and again overcoming the odds, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've come so far and you've been so thankful for your family
Mm-hmm.
support. Support is, I don't think you can do it without support.
No. And I used to believe that I could achieve all these things on my own. And then what I
Mm.
realized was throughout life that many of the things that I believed in, as far as that I could get through on my own, just simply weren't possible. And that's where I think I really had to accept this concept that all of these people who are constantly surrounding me are truly there to support me. Now, don't get me wrong, it also took me a while to really understand who's there for me and who has my back when everything goes south. And in fact, one thing that I'll share with you and everyone else that's tuning in right now is I actually chose to do this intentionally. And that is, I chose to intentionally test out my network. I remember there were times when I had experienced difficulties, just I think like many other people experience. And what I did is I literally went through my entire network and then just started to ask for help, regardless whether I was connected with the person for a year, 2 years, a month, a week, whatever the duration was. And the only reason why I did that is because I really wanted to truly understand who was there for me and to what degree can I go to them for help. Because I think at the end of the day, in my opinion, that's what the network is all about anyway, is being able to uplift each other and build each other up. And I don't believe in this concept of personal and professional, to be honest with you. I think a network is a network, regardless of what it is. And I think if I feel like I'm part of your network and you're part of my network, I don't think there is an ask that I shouldn't be able to go to you because of X, Y, and Z circumstances. So I just feel like whenever people join my network, I just pose the ask. Whatever help that I need, whatever support that I need, I just ask them regardless of what it is. Now, that journey took me a while to get to because I was also not comfortable asking for help for many years. I
Mm.
created every possible story in the book for why I should not go to you and ask you for help, because you're going to think of me differently. You're going to spread the message to other people. You're going to delete me as a connection and blah, 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 blah. And then what I started to realize was that through real life experience, many of these stories weren't true. And going back to everything that you had asked me earlier in regard to overcoming odds and everything that I mentioned, in the connecting point there is that it's all a story. That's ultimately what I believe in at the end of the day.
Like the one you make
Everything
up.
boils down to the narrative about anything,
Yeah.
about your dream, about your limitations, about your fears, about asking for help, anything.
So it could be
For
your
me, it all
past,
boils down to
the narrative you make about the past, the narrative
the
you make
narrative
about
you
your
make about the
future,
past, the present, and the future.
the
It's all
future,
a narrative.
the
It's
narrative you
all a
make about your
story.
job, the
Yeah,
narrative you make about your family, the narrative.
yeah,
Yeah. Great.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I started to realize is if everything boils down to the story, and if I'm the author of that story, then why
Mhm.
can't I shift the story at any given point within this journey? Why can't I develop a different perspective around the same set of circumstances that I might have viewed in X, Y, and Z way? The question that I was faced with, why me? Why can't I shift that to why not you? Who's actually there preventing you most of the time? And whoever said this, they truly did say it best. You are the limit many of the times to whatever it is, whatever the dream, whatever the aspiration. And that's what I started to realize within my own story is all of these fears, all these limitations I was setting upon myself. There wasn't an actual person sitting next to me at all those moments saying, you can't do this. You can't
Right.
pursue this. You can't be a public speaker as a career. Those were all limitations I was creating based on stories that I was telling internally. And once I started to understand that, that's when I think I really gained control over that narrative and started to shift it and just create different stories, literally.
Yeah. And I think that that's it for so many of us. Once we realize that we need to change that narrative, then we
Yeah.
really take our power back.
Yeah.
So that
And I
leads me
really
to,
think it's as simple as that. Now, don't
yes.
get me wrong. For me, this took, I don't know,
Yeah.
8 to 10 years to discover, but I do
Yeah.
believe it's possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It takes time, just like anything. Asking
Mhm.
for help is always hard. Like for those of us that are overachievers, like some of
Yeah.
us in the chat,
Yeah.
feel like a sense that we need to prove ourselves in a certain way. We need to have certain things to show our value. It's really hard, the narratives that we create, and that
Yeah.
we're our own worst enemy. We hear that frequently in
Mhm.
conversations, and that's so true. So asking for help is really hard to do, and so I think we all have to like practice. But I like to talk about that just with kindness and consideration, really just allowing us to maybe make that a little bit more easier for all of us to ask for
Yeah.
help when we need it, and
And I think
breaking
that
down the stigmas. Mhm.
I think that's one of the challenges too of being an overachiever. I don't know if you can relate to this or anyone else, but I've been so hard on myself for so many years. And that's solely because I've developed these standards and expectations for my life and for the
Mhm.
story that I wanted to create. And
Mhm.
I know that as part of that journey, it took me a while to actually develop self-compassion, to
Mm.
fully acknowledge myself that, hey, you're making progress, even though it may not quote unquote seem like you are, you still are. You're still
Yeah.
progressing forward, even if it seems like small steps that I'm taking every day that are leading to some of these other things. And I know that over the years, I've gotten better at it. I don't think I'll ever perfect it because I don't I don't
It's
believe
always,
perfection exists.
yeah,
I
right.
think it's more so about learning how do you become comfortable with the daily imperfections of life and the different things that I have to learn. But
Yeah.
yeah, overachiever. It's been that's been a
Tough one.
yes, it is
I know.
never ending chapter to say the least.
Yeah. Oh, you said something that I was just thinking about, and I was like, oh, and I wanted to say, we were talking about overachieving, and oh my gosh, now I just
Compassion,
can't remember. Compassion. Oh gosh, now I
being
gotta
hard on
backtrack.
yourself.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are very common. Oh, darn, it's okay. It'll come back to me. That's just the way it goes. I mean, it's okay. I mean, but we can, there's just always something else to talk about. So I'm not even worried
Mhm.
about it, you know. But being hard on ourselves is something that I do frequently, and I have
Mhm.
to forgive myself. Oh, insight.
Yeah.
We're, even if we're making those baby steps and we're moving slowly through our trauma, through our stories, through the negative narratives,
Mhm.
right, that we tell ourselves, even the ability to find insight in those moments, I think, is fantastic for me. Like, I recently had something that I had to reflect on, and it was really hard, and I had to like say, okay, I had to own it. You know, I had
Yeah.
to own it as self-sabotage. Let me just make that clear.
Mhm.
That was really hard, but I had the insight to look back and say, okay, I made that mistake. It was something that I did for whatever reason, and then we just start making excuses and justifying, but then I had to go back to like, okay, this is the truth. So I can go ahead and make forward growth, develop accordingly, and just not make that mistake again. So,
Mhm.
you know, even
Mhm.
like the small things, but that insight really can, as painful as that reflection is, it's going to move us forward.
Yeah. And I think the other beauty of what you just mentioned regarding the mistakes, and a
Yep.
friend of mine, Thomas, actually helped me see this through however many conversations him and I had by now. And that's um, one of the things that he mentioned was, even in regard to acknowledging mistakes,
Mhm.
it doesn't actually guarantee that you're not going to make that same mistake again and
Oh,
again and again.
yeah,
And I remember having that conversation with him and just literally being mind blown by
that's
how much
true.
truth he had in that statement. And he said that
Oh,
you can sit and analyze and you could think of all the different things that you could have done in that given moment. But there's one thing that you truly don't know, and that's the unknown of the future, that the circumstances will be different, even if it's the same person that I'm having a conversation with.
hmm,
I've learned this through relationships, and that's, I would look at one relationships and I would sit back afterwards and try and analyze what worked, what didn't, what
hmm,
could I have done differently. And then the next relationship comes and it's a different type of love. It's a different type
hmm,
of relationship. So I'm
hmm.
trying to carry everything over from the past one and it's not working. And then there's some sort of thing that ends up happening. And I think the same thing happens within friendships and different things like that. I mean, how my friends and I, including my parents, solved
Yeah.
problems when I was 12 and 13 are drastically different from how we're solving them when I'm 28.
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
communicating differently. We have completely different approaches. I mean, that's 16 years that I've been influenced by all these different things, books, podcasts, other people. And so my way of thinking has evolved so much, as well as their way of thinking. And I know now, going back to the topic of adoption, when my parents and when I was younger, one of the things that I found very difficult to do was to have difficult conversations with my parents
Mm.
because, well, I was a teenager and I felt that I knew better than my parents did. So I was a rebel. Yeah, I was in
Ooh,
that.
you?
I was in that club. Yeah, luckily they had a free membership, so I could join at any time. But
Ah,
but
oh,
I
like a
I
rebel.
I struggled. I mean, I struggled to have these difficult conversations, and I would try and
Mm.
avoid them. Now I enjoy them. I enjoy having a full dive regarding whatever it is, even in a situation that it's something that I did, because it's truly helping me see things that I don't see. And I don't know who said this once again, but I remember I read this book and the person was talking about the blind spots that each individual has. I mean, there's a reason why they're called blind spots. I can't see them, no matter how hard I try. And it's
Mm.
only through other people. And that's why I think spaces like yours, as well as sounds like Emily's and so many other people, are really important, because these are the spaces that allow me to see my blind spots. These are the conversations where I can learn from other people who say, hey, you've been doing this for X number of years, or you have said this, is that really true?
Mhm.
Versus to me, it becomes automatic. It's automation after a while, and I don't question it unless someone brings it to my awareness. So I just, that's what I'm trying to say is I think there's so much beauty in what you're doing and what so many other people are doing through podcasts and shows
Yeah.
that it's, I
Thank
almost
you.
can't thank them enough for that.
Aw, well, thank you. I feel that you
Or,
do a lot of that with your podcast and
mm,
overcoming odds, really telling those stories that you want to highlight, you that should be shared, right? Our
mm-hmm,
personal stories. And Emily, you brought her up, and so connect with Emily.
mm-hmm.
If you don't know Emily, connect with Emily. I'm sure y'all would have a fantastic conversation as well. She was in the Navy for over 20 years.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
active duty and then guard. But, so she's got like a really interesting perspective and just a wonderful, amazing person, coach, really just out there. So, and she's live streaming. So have a good old conversation with her. I
That
can't
would be
wait. She's
awesome.
going to be on my show. I have to have her so she can share her story. So she's really fantastic. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. But that's what it's about. It's sharing our stories. And like you
Yeah,
said, like even for you to go ahead and you already picked up on that energy she had.
yeah,
It was just evident, right? Like that's when connection, that's a genuine connection. Let me phrase it that way. That was a genuine connection.
yeah.
So that was
And that's
great.
and that's how I think opportunities are created. I
Mhm.
think to a
Yeah.
degree, being able to genuinely connect with someone like that through their story of who they
Yeah.
really are at the core, and then from there, who knows what happens, and who knows what other opportunities might
Yeah.
create themselves. And I just, I, there's so many things, as you could tell,
So,
about what I'm trying to say and having a hard time saying. There's so
aw.
many things about life that I just don't understand. I don't understand how certain paths cross. I don't understand how you and I actually connected, knowing the fact that we don't even reside nearly close to each other, so many
Right.
miles apart, and yet still somehow this thing called life connects people of so many different journeys. And some happen at a grocery store, others happen while, I don't know, slipping on ice and falling on the ground, and the other person chooses to help you up. Like there's just so many quote unquote random situations, which
Yeah.
really just begs the question, is it truly random, or is it all somehow intentional? And is there something else that's larger at stake, whether it's energy, universe, whatever it is? And maybe even going back to the circumstances that I was born into, and maybe other people, is that the purpose?
Yeah.
Is that the gift? Is that the ultimate gift, to be able to recognize that the things that I was born with are
Hmm.
the things that I can actually create change with? Is that the ultimate gift of life?
Wow. Whew. Okay. I do want to talk about, we're going to close up in 15 minutes. So I do
Yes,
want to talk about your 501c3. I want to talk about your
of course.
nonprofit.
Mhm.
You, I didn't have time, but I saw your, like a shirt. You had some like a cute t-shirt on your store. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I would really like to get that. So I know you have a
I'll send
really
you
great
one, of course.
website. But people can connect with you on your website. And
Yes.
I know they should check it out. Now I have to talk about your TEDx.
Yeah.
You looked so young.
I
I've watched it a couple times
did.
because, but how old were you and how did
That's
you
going on
like get on?
to,
How did you get there? How did you make it to the TEDx? I have to know. I have to know.
so that's going on to 2 years. I think. I
Really?
think it was, yeah. I
Did?
think it was 2018. It was around my birthday. The time.
You've grown in 2 years. Like,
Yeah, I think so.
wow. The
And
podcasting and the interviewing and
oh,
everything.
absolutely. And about 2 years ago, I was approached by this group who was putting together this TEDx conference,
Hmm.
and they came across my story through a couple of mutual connections, and then from there, I remember working with them, and it was actually quite the experience to even put this together, because there was a lot of preparation that you had to do prior
Hmm.
to it. So there was actually a team of people that I worked with in helping me put this into one coherent narrative.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I'll share with you or anyone else that chooses to do this or has done this is there was actually a moment where I didn't want to do it. There was
Mm.
a moment where I was standing in a green room and I was being introduced onto the stage by these two co-hosts who were reading my bio and everything that I've been through. And I remember a part of me didn't want to step onto the stage solely because the opening story that I choose to give this presentation with involved my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom is no longer alive. And so I felt that what I was about to share about her was going to be not well received by her because it was the truth.
Yeah.
And she wasn't there to defend, not defend, but to accept that truth. And so part of me actually really hesitated about stepping onto that stage. And what made the difference, this is a true story, I was standing right in the doorway of the room and the stage, and I was about to walk on. And the reason why I chose to take a step forward is I realized that from that point on, this story was not solely for me. This story was for however many people that choose to tune into my life and the different things that I've been through to help them understand that A, we're not alone throughout this journey, and
Yeah.
B, everyone has a story. And the beauty of that story is that what makes it real and what makes it true to me is according to the truth that I see it as. It's not necessarily the truth that my mom saw it as, or my sister, or anyone else that's involved. They have their own versions of the truth. And so what I realized in the moment once again is that the only way for me to live my truth is that I had to embrace it, accept it, and step into it. And once I was able to do those things, that was it. That was the
You
ultimate
got
thing.
your
And then
power back.
I got my power back. And then from there, I connected with so many people, so many life experiences that it was unbelievable. I think that was it was a huge jump start to do it. And even in regard to that, for you've watched it, and for anyone else that chooses to watch it, the the opening. So I use an F
I'm
word.
gonna share it.
I
Go
use an
ahead.
F word at the very beginning of it. And the reason why I chose to do it is because as I was listening to different TED Talks,
Mm-hmm.
I figured that what better way to catch people's attention, not at the 10th or the 15th or the 20th minute, but in the first 15 to 20 seconds. And that's where I just chose to be bold and just use an F word on the TEDx stage. And then from there, I mean, don't get me wrong, it sometimes backfires. There are certain, I speak a lot at schools and colleges
Mm-hmm.
and different universities, and sometimes schools
Yeah.
will come back to me and say, hey, we can't use you as a presenter because of the profanity, even though it's just,
Part
once
of
upon a time. Yeah,
yes.
it's part of the setting.
Right.
And it's just once in a lifetime, so to speak. Like I I'm very cautious and conscious of those things
Yeah.
moving forward. But it's just interesting how if you put things out there like that, how they could be perceived and possibly misinterpreted in different ways. So it's um it's something that I'm still having to learn. But I've embraced it. I've embraced every word of it, and
Yeah.
to me, it's like I'm really
Awesome.
proud of myself for being able to do it and how far I've come to this point.
Yeah, you've come incredible. What's in the works for next year?
What's in the works for next year? So right now I'm currently traveling, planning to travel for about
Right.
12 months. And I've started here in Europe, and then I'll be making my way to Africa for a couple months, and then to Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and primarily trying to learn from different cultures and different people. I'm also trying to learn about this concept of change. Traveling has definitely given me that perspective because it in a way is like change on steroids. There's so much change that's happening, whether it's due to people, environment, circumstances, whatever it might be. But outside of that, just continuing to do what I'm doing, podcasting, building out the organization,
Yeah.
speaking at different schools and organizations
I
and
know you have
colleges.
something coming up in December, an event that
Yes, there is an
I
event
saw that.
that Jessica Dugas, which I think
Mm-hmm.
some of the people might actually know who are tuning in
Yeah.
here, she is putting an event where two nonprofits are going to benefit from it. And that's, I want to say the name of the event is called A Musical Evening
Mm-hmm.
of Giving.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it as soon as I get it. I definitely wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about
I
that.
Yeah, so how I understand it is that it's essentially going to be a night with a variety of performers
Mm-hmm.
where people will be able to just tune in just like this, and then from wherever they're at, they'll be able to stream their music and different forms of concerts, and then all the proceeds are going to help Overcoming Odds as well as another nonprofit that's a part of it. And it's, to me, it's just another reminder that what we've started is something that's of value, something that's impacting people.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me a while to understand. It actually took me, when I was first starting this, and Gabe Leal and I actually had a similar conversation like this on his show, however many months ago. When I was first starting this, I believed in this,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know how it was going to be received by other people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing that I really try to act upon nowadays is whenever something impacts me, I choose to tell it in the moment. I
Mm-hmm.
really don't try and assume that the other person knows that it impacted me greatly.
Wow.
I try and tell them in the time, because I've had a, I'll share a quick story with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my sixth grade teacher, when I first came to US, actually was one of the people that ended up changing my life. He was the person that stayed with me before class and after class and taught me English. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. When I graduated from high school and I went into college, actually, when I graduated from college, I had a realization that I haven't seen him in about 8 to 10 years. And that's because, I
Wow.
thought that the impact he's had in my life, he somehow knew.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of the matter is, because I never communicated that to him, he had no idea the type of impact he had. So I went back to my hometown. I was there for a couple of days visiting my parents. And then I chose to go back to that middle school and see how he was. It turned out that he retired 2 years before, but he happened to be subbing in that day. So once again, that's where I don't believe in coincidences. I think there had to be a reason.
Wow.
I walked into that classroom and he immediately knew who I was. And the first words that he said was that, I didn't know the type of impact I had on you. And I told
Yeah.
him everything, and I told him what I was doing. And for me, it was a humbling moment. It was also an opportunity to learn. And what I chose to take away from that moment is to never hold back.
Mm-hmm.
Say whatever needs to be said, regardless of how challenging it might be. So in this case, and I've said this on Gabe's show as well as so many others,
Mm-hmm.
whenever people impact me greatly, I just tell them now. Why hold back? Because then
Oh,
if I don't ever share those things with you, how will you ever know? How will you ever know that you actually make a difference? And from there, what
that's
I
true.
started to realize is, once I started to receive feedback from other people regarding the work that we started to do, when things got tough, that's the feedback that I always fell back on, that it's still making a difference in the lives of others, that we're still impacting others. I don't know if you
It's
can you
true.
relate,
Yes.
right?
I was already thinking of a
When times get
story.
hard, right? You fall back
So
on those things.
yeah, so I'll share a little story.
Of course.
When I was working in foster care with kids in foster care, and I was working with adolescents, there was a family that I just absolutely adored. Like, these kids were the best kids. Would always get so excited to go pick up the kids and meet when I was gonna go. Knew I was meeting with this family. If we knew we were gonna meet in court, I was really excited to see them and be there for them. So, anyways, it eventually turned into something similar. So, like, later on, I realized, like, one of the girls that were in foster care, she was a teenager at the time. She's like, "You don't realize the impact you had on me. You don't realize what you
Yeah.
did for me and how you got me." And I still communicate with her to this day. She's still connected with me, and I still talk to her, and I absolutely adore her. but really it is, you don't really realize till later on. And that's something that's also come up in past conversations in other ways, is that sometimes you don't really realize the impact you're having, and sometimes people don't realize the impact that you're having on them later on. So then they come and they say, I remember specifically you said this, or I remember specifically when we did this, and that changed me. And so I have had that specifically, and for me as well, with other people, that's like, wow, I didn't realize what an impact they had on me. And there's somebody in the military like that. Yeah, there's somebody in the military like that really mentored me, and I was like 21, 22, and I just had my daughter, so I was a single mom in the military, and I didn't realize that the impact she had on me till so many years later, and how much she saved me and how much she kept me safe. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still going back through the impact that people have had on me from 5 to 10 years ago. It's just setting in. I'm just being able to receive many of the messages that they've shared with me. And I just think it's really interesting how some of these things, going back to how we started this conversation, everyone can be a teacher and a student simultaneously. And the beauty of that is that you never actually know which role you're playing at any given moment. I might be sitting here and then reflecting back on whoever's comment 10 years from today and finding so much truth in whatever it is that they choose to share. And the same thing is vice versa. So I just think it's really beautiful how this aspect of life works out. And if anything, it just makes me realize that there's so much that I'll never know, but the beauty of it is I can just enjoy it for what it is.
Right? Oh my goodness. So many lessons to be learned. All right. I'm sharing Jessica's page for the Breakthrough, a musical evening of giving. So please check that out. Your nonprofit is sponsoring that event. So, all right. Oh my goodness. Oleg, the hour went by so fast. And you're such a great storyteller. You're such a great podcaster. You have like this way about you where you can just go into your stories and share, and are so captivating. So
thank you.
Let me go. Yeah, thank you for being here. Gabe, let's see. Gabe had made a comment earlier. Wait, let's pull up this comment before we end it, because I
remember this actually.
The suspenders. Okay. So Gabe, one day soon I'll be with Oleg and Scott, which I just had a conversation with Scott not that long ago, and I love him. Yeah, let's all get our suspenders ready. Because Scott is great. So I guess you and Gabe will all chit chat very soon. I can't wait to see that episode. Gabe will be sitting where you're sitting soon. Come the end of the year, he's gonna be hanging out with me. So good. Okay, let's see. Mackenzie, thank you for your comment. Reclaim your power to control of your trajectory. It's so important we do that. We have to learn to do that for our own lives. If not, if we leave the power in others' hands, that you're not going to win. You can't win when someone else has your power.
And that's a great question for anyone that's even tuning in right now, is which area of your life do you feel like you have to reclaim power in?
Ooh, you're such a podcaster. All right, real quick, Tim, I don't know you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for reaching out. That was because of Gabe's work. Look at that. That's networking right there. So Tim, nice to meet you. Oleg, meet Tim. Tim, meet Oleg. We're all live streaming LinkedIn, faces here. So let's see. It's funny how what he says still resonates with me. It was memorable conversation, and knowing Oleg Lougheed. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Saying that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I would have never found Scott. Right? He's one of my favorite people. So, I know. Your team's amazing. And then I know you do the show with Casey. Casey comes in there, and they're part of your
board.
Your board for your organization. So you've been working quite a while in very many different facets together, and it's really works well. Solid team.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about all of them, is that each and every single one of them make me a better person every day, and I really do mean that. And Scott and I, we host the Thursday show, Just a Squirrel Looking for a Nut, and it's really great to share that space with him, because I think him and I have a great dynamic working together, because we're so opposite in many aspects of like, just energy and everything, but somehow it works. Like it literally is a perfect combination. I joke with him all the time, and that's the intro to the show, the two squirrels. I joke with him all the
Who
time
came
about
up with that? Who came up with that?
the concept.
Yeah,
So
the topic, the name of the show.
I came across an ad where this person, he was looking for a job, and he made this ad, and the picture of it was a squirrel, and underneath it was his description of what had happened during COVID and what he was trying to do. And then from that point, I remember I was having a conversation with him, and we even brainstormed like different business ideas and things like that. And he ended up getting a job within a week or so afterwards. And I remember in my head, I said, if he's not going to take these ideas, I'm going to just take it. I'm going to make it happen, because I thought it was so brilliant. Like, just a squirrel looking for a nut, trying to get out of the rut. In all honesty, who cannot relate to that?
Yeah.
Who has not been in a rut, and who is not currently in a rut? And so that's where I literally
and I feel like a squirrel.
Scott,
so,
and I was like, hey, I think we have a project. Well, would you like to do it? And he's like, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, listen, I know it's late. I don't want to keep you up. You're in Portugal, right? You said you were in Portugal.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to let you get going. I know it's late. Let's wrap it up. I'm going to show up the last couple comments. Thank you, Saturday Night Mackenzie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great questions tonight. I appreciate. Thank you, everyone, for being here, engaging in the conversation, and connecting with Oleg. Please, if you don't know, connect with Oleg. He's fantastic if you didn't realize already. All right, Oleg, I'm going to let you go. Get some rest. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You've been great. I'm so happy to see you overcoming the odds that, you had in front of you, and you're going to do so much in 2022. And I really look forward to supporting you and seeing where your organization goes and all the new projects that come and transpire. So
no, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, appreciate
Seriously.
you.
And I also didn't mention this last time when we had a podcast. I love your background. Is that all Sharpie?
No, it's Spot. I mean, it's not. But Scott likes
As
it
in,
too.
like, did you draw it though? Did you write
I
all
bought
of that?
it. No, I bought it.
Oh,
I just like the feel of it, though. I love the hand drawn.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and it was positive affirmations, which was super important for me. Positive affirmations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of my own mental health, and I really find comfort in positive affirmations for myself. So I figured it would be something that was on brand and really would go with my show. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. Scott said it reminds him of like New York subway and graffiti, like people writing on the wall. Yeah. So that's great. And that's what I like. I really like that kind of relatable, like approach and concept. And I want that kind of community. So thank you. All right, my friend, we're going to roll out the outro, and we're just going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for everyone for checking in, and our new friend Oleg in our community. So night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.